Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode Around the Fire on Spirit Reflections. I'm Fred Govea, and today we're going to talk to a neuroscientist about how our brain influences the way we act with other people and with ourselves. I'm also extremely happy to say that she is, by extension, a part of my spiritual family because she happens to be the niece of my dear friend and spiritual father in this life, Geraldo and Ibis Coura. So, a big kiss to the both of them who may be watching this episode. I'm especially grateful for this chance to meet virtually their wonderful niece Renata, and talk about a very beautiful topic, which is the neuroscience of our brain and all of the cutting edge technology that she's implementing in her work as a scientist. And of course, like every episode around the fire, we always like to start by getting to know the person first before we delve into the tools that they have specialized in. So, without further ado, Renata, welcome to Spirit.
Very glad to be here, Fred, and to meet you virtually. I hope you will be able to meet each other presentially.
Yeah.
And yeah, and thanks to my uncle to put us in contact.
Uncle GG, as I call him.
Exactly.
So, Renata, talk to us about you first. Take us back to the beginning of your childhood and sort of how you first had your awakening moments of curiosity about spirituality, religiosity, philosophy, those areas that we are
Yeah.
interested in here.
So I'm the first one of four children in my family. Um, and my father had a post-traumatic syndrome uh, because of things that happened in his life with his younger brother, and then he became alcoholic
Hmm.
afterwards. So I had a kind of difficult childhood because of that. I was
Hmm.
very close to my father, and I grew up in Cardicism. My father's family in general, and especially my uncle Geraldo VG,
Hmm.
set us on that path. And so I spent my childhood and early adolescence at the center. I even evangelized the younger children, even though I was a child myself. And so this helped me a lot to develop since my very young age this spirituality or this contact with that. Uh, this kind of a look or perspective of life, of behavior, of all those things. Because for me, what always touched me a lot, more than the religion itself, was really the behavior part, how we behave, how we interact with others, and how have implications in our lives and lives of people around, and all I mean, I grew up going to making caritative works with my
Right. That was
mother and people, and so it also generates lots of empathy, of kindness, of I don't know, and also to take perspective about your own problems. So even though I had today, I can look behind and say, okay, I had a difficult childhood, but at that moment, I didn't live that like a traumatic thing or suffering or something like that. Um,
I think
so
the elements of community and altruism, like the charity work
yeah,
that Spiritism encourages you to do as a community, really helps you to alleviate whatever you're going through in your own life by forcing you to reach out and seeing what other people are going through that may be even more severe, right? In many
yeah,
cases.
yeah, totally. And also, I think also today with my knowledge and my expertise, also I understand that it gave me also what we call today affective security. You know?
Affective security.
Yeah, you know. I mean, you feel even though there was this problems with my father, there was lot of love, and we felt that, we feel that. And with my mother, my brothers and sister, but also the community that became like uncles and and aunts and so on, and cousins. Yeah, it generated like, okay, there is a problem, but you are not alone, and so you can go through that, and you will survive, and well survive. Okay, so
Nice.
something I think that makes all the difference between someone that lives difficult things and are not, and struggle, and don't I mean don't is not capable of going through it and become fragile and so on, and someone that lives difficult things and become resilient and is able to go on and to go forward.
To overcome. Yeah, maybe they had the kinds of tools that you had growing up with this context and this environment that nurtured these abilities in you, right?
Yeah. And
Okay.
then when I was 5, my mother says, I don't know, I don't remember that, but now I remember because my mother repeated it a lot of time for me. And so I have I created a souvenir from of that. But my mother said that when I was 5, someone around asked like, "Oh, what do you want to be when you be an adult?" And I said, I want to be a doctor. I want to study the brain, and I want to live in France.
Oh wow! Already at 5,
And my mother said, "From where come all that? From all from
and you
nowhere."
guys had no connection to France growing up, right?
No, no. My mother studied a little bit French, and but I had a kind of yeah, love for the language and the country, but I didn't know really what was that. But since I was so five, I had this on my mind. I don't know from where. But then when I was 12, I started to have a lot of questions, not about cardiacism itself, but about people's behavior in this environment. And
Right.
I began to feel like bothered by an excess of responsibility placed on spirits and past lives and I don't know what, and God, and no, I don't know, to the detriment of individual responsibility.
And too
So
much emphasis on the past and in the spirit world, and not as much emphasis on right here, right now, me incarnate and my
yeah,
own responsibilities.
yeah. And then, even though, I mean, what I perceived, and it was subjective and my perception, but for me, it was like, okay, so on one hand, it helps people maybe to be resilient and to understand difficult situations and to keep going on, but at the same time, generates a kind of passivity
Right.
facing in face of the life and the things and the yeah. So yeah,
It's
I
this.
started
It's
really to be
I see
bothered.
this. I see. I'm sorry to interrupt because this
No,
really hits close to home as well, because it's sometimes a kind of uh, passivity or acceptance that goes something like this: oh, I must have done so many wrong things in my
yeah,
life. This is why I deserve to suffer what I'm going through right now. So I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm just going to suffer.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so for me, or I don't know, you are, I mean, having a bad behavior or bad thoughts. Oh, maybe there are spirits that are
Obsessors
influencing,
influencing
obsession.
you, right?
Yeah, you know. And I'm not saying that it's not true, and maybe
Right,
it can
right,
be it. But I mean, I cannot do something about the spirits. I can do something about myself. So if you are not in the length wave of the spirits, you will not be influenced by them. So like, okay,
right.
so act on yourself. So I was only 12. But then from that moment on, I moved I moved, not moved away, but I take some distance from religion itself. And I began like a process of inner searching and self-knowledge and intimate reform, like, okay, what I need to understand myself, because um, I decided to become responsible for myself, for my life, for my relationships here and now. That's the only moment, the only time you can act. So I said, okay, maybe I'm not saying that I don't believe in all that anymore, but I mean, I cannot act on it. So I will not just, I mean, I will act on what I need and I can act. And so it's today when I look back, I said, okay, it's funny because I was young and I developed some strategies, like to do it, because I didn't really have tools or knowledge to do those kinds of things. So, for example, one thing I did, and I remember very well when I started it, because with the situation of my father, and I was very, very close to him, I was very nervous. I don't know if I can say like that. I mean, it's not nervous. I was like sensitive,
Anxious?
you know.
Oh,
No,
sensitive.
sensitive, like if you were discussing and it starts to be not I don't know, not very kind. I started crying, or I could like really very fast become, I mean, lose control.
Emotional, right?
Yeah, emotional, and so. And then I realized, I mean, I remember once I was arguing with my mother, and I was feeling like that. I could not speak anymore because I was feeling the ball here and
The crying, right?
crying, and so. And in my head I had this thought saying like, okay, you cannot live like that, you cannot behave like that, it's not good for you, it's not good for the relationship, so we need to find another way to do that. And so the strategy that I set it up was to write myself a letter. And usually I did that, the first time I did it in the end of the year. So I wrote a letter, and in this letter I was like, I always liked a lot to write. Writing was always for me, uh, I don't know, a tool for organizing my ideas, my thoughts, my feelings, understanding it,
Like
and
like a
regulating myself.
like therapeutic journaling, I guess they call it, right? Journaling to do for therapeutic
Yeah.
purposes, I guess.
At at that time there was no word for that, no name for that, but maybe, yeah. Um, and then I this letter was like, okay, I made like a report of all my year, everything I lived, and so on. I acknowledged myself for everything all my efforts, all my qualities, and all my small victories and things that I did well. I use it also to be grateful for the situations, even the difficult ones. Like I was like, okay, I acknowledge also my pain, and but not as a victim, but grateful for the growth that it make me
It
have,
allowed, right,
it
right.
allowed me to have. And I also highlight the things I want to improve, to change. And I remember very well that the first thing I put was this. I mean, I don't want to be nervous like that, or sensitive, emotional, and I want to work on that.
Like
And
being
so,
emotionally vulnerable to the environment, especially
yeah,
around your parents and your father.
yeah. And so usually I did like a small action plan, and I commit myself to I will do it for the year. And so I spent all the year working on that, and at the end of the next year I opened my letter, I read it, and I was like, oh, very good, you realize it,
Wow.
and that and that, and then I I did it for years, you know s- till my the adult life, young adult life, I did it. And
Wow.
it was amazing for me, because it really through this maybe uh, child technique. I don't know. I mean, something that I put in place because it
It
was,
doesn't seem very childish. It seems pretty mature and like a New Year's
yeah,
resolution where you stick to a plan, an action plan, you commit to milestones, and then you check in with yourself at the end of the next year. That's really cool.
yeah. So it helped me a lot to be disciplined, to keep focus, and also to observe myself, to be in self observation and self study, um, and also helped me a lot to uh, develop a kind of self leadership or self regulation, emotional regulation, but also to organize my ideas, to develop lots of self knowledge. And then when I was 16, I started my scientific life. So very early as well, because I always had this feeling that I want to do medicine or research and all the things. And so I'm from Rio de Janeiro, and I studied in Colégio Pedro II. So it's a college from the time of the
Imperial
empire.
time.
Yeah, exactly. And so I make a concourse to go into this school, and I studied a lot. And then there is a research institute there, Fiocruz
Mhm.
Foundation and Institute Oswaldo Cruz, that is a huge research institute, and they had a program that is very, very, very nice program that exists to today, that calls scientific vocation program. And so they open it for high school students. So you need to pass through a selection and have good
Mhm.
notes and so on. And then I started like that in my scientific life. Uh, and I never stopped.
So at the time, what was motivating you towards that scientific? What was the specifics of the science that you were after?
um, I had, at that time, I mean, first of all, I had the thing of I need to learn all the time. So for me, there was the thing of, okay, science makes me study all the time and learn all the time, so it's good for me. But for me, it was not just learn or to know something, but to be able to do something with that and to transmit and to I know in and to use it for something. And so for me. Medicine and science for me was the way to be able to study, learn all the time, but also use it to help people. But then when I was thinking about medicine, I was like, okay, but I don't want to work with with sickness. I want to work with health. I
Ah,
want to work with health. I want to help people to stay healthy, to take care of themselves, to maybe be able to do what this little exercise that I put in place for myself helped me to do, to take the lead over myself and my,
self leadership, right?
yeah. And then so I decided to do research, because for me it was like, okay, maybe I can discover things, I can do things that will help people, and treatment, but also understanding of how it works. And I was very interested in understanding the brain, because I was fascinated by this thing of the thing that we call human being, like, okay, we do lots of things, and at the same time you control, we it's difficult to control ourselves and to just do what we want to do, how we want to do. And also interactions. So I always be someone very sociable, very connected to people, to my family, to friends, and so on, very attached to them. And so for me, it was very interesting. And also maybe uh, uh, the condition of my father, because for me, it was
Right.
like, kind of dissociation, because for me there was my father, and then there was my the disease that was manifesting when he was drunk or something. That for me was not him, was something else,
I see. I see.
And then so then I worked for 7 years in this research institute. I started a college there. I kept working in the research institute during my study. I did biomedical studies, and then I went to Porto Alegre, to the south of Brazil, to make my master and then my PhD thesis. And all that time in parallel, I kept this love for France and French, and studied French, and read French books, and listened French music, and studied French history, and so on. But at that time, it was kind of a dream, and very far away, because traveling was not easy. My
Right.
family didn't have money, so it was not something that I really could figure out how to do it, and then so I in my PhD, in my master, I worked with cancer, with colorectal cancer. In the part, because my master and my PhD was genetics, molecular biology, genetics, and neuroscience, but neuroscience was more in my PhD.
Okay.
So in master, I developed that kind of diagnosis method to be able to predict the prognostic of some kinds of colorectal cancer by molecular patterns. And in my PhD, I developed a preclinical genetic therapy protocol to treat genetic disease with neurodegenerative, a part of neurodegenerative symptoms. And this disease, usually we have treatment by enzyme replacement. So people receive, children receive the replacement of the enzyme that are lost, that are not expressing at them. And but it's a good treatment, but it's not going through the hematoencephalic barrier, so it's not treating the brain. And
So
so
what does it treat then?
sorry.
What
But
does it treat then? If you,
all the other body symptoms, because
I
this
see.
disease is a metabolic disease. So
Okay.
it's like it calls mucopolysaccharidosis type 1. So it's a genetic disease. So you have a mutation in a gene that makes you lose the expression of an important enzyme in our body that is working all the body and brain.
Got it.
And so as you don't have the enzyme that needs to degrade some substance in the body, this substance accumulates. And this is generating lots of problems. And usually children without treatment die at age of 10, for example.
Got it.
Around
Got
it,
it.
And most of all by respiratory insufficiency, because the substance accumulates in diaphragm and
In the
muscles,
lungs.
and they
Got it.
cannot breathe anymore. And so the enzyme replacement is very efficient for all the somatic symptoms, but
More
it's not.
physical, but
Yeah,
not
but it's not
doesn't
treating
get to
the
the
brain.
brain.
Yeah. At that time, I don't know how it evolved from there, but at that time it was like that. And so I worked on this preclinical. We say preclinical because it was in animals and not in human, tested in animals at that time, with a genetic therapy. So it means you modify the gene, you put it in a vector. I used the viral vector, adeno-associated virus that is not pathogenic for us. And then we modify it genetically to have only the gene that is interesting for us, and then we
Right.
inject it in the patient, and then we
Observe.
can have the expression, the natural expression of the enzyme in the body. And so it was efficient for the brain and for the body,
Oh,
with
okay.
very promising results. Yeah. So and so in my PhD, I did this bridge between genetics, that was my first field of research, and neuroscience, that was my dream field of research, to understand the brain, to start working on that. And then when I was during my PhD, we have in Brazil something we call the sandwich doctorate. It means,
Sandwich doctorate?
yes, because it means that we can postulate to have to go somewhere else to do a part of your PhD, and then you come back. So it's the idea is you start in a
Aha.
place, you go around, and then you
Abroad.
come back. Yeah, and then you
Got
come
it.
back.
So the filling of the sandwich part is the going abroad, and the
Yeah,
bread is the Brazil part.
exactly, exactly.
Gotcha. All right. This is making me hungry. All right.
Yeah. And so yeah, so I don't really thought at that time to do that. And then I was in the last time where I could ask for that, and a friend from the lab said, yeah, let's ask it, it's your last chance, you need to ask for it. And I say, well, okay. And I said, so I go to France because it was
Your
also
dream.
my dream, so I need to enjoy this opportunity and go there. And so I contacted some a researcher in a lab in Pasteur Institute in France. I managed to have my funding to come,
Wonderful.
and I came, but I didn't do the sandwich because I stayed.
Ah, so it was more like a focaccia pizza. There was no filling on top. The
Ex-
layer, final layer is France.
yeah, because the problem, so this is another subject, but the point is that I think that is very fair, this kind of thing, because you come, you are paid by
Right.
CAPS or CNPq, that is like the
Government
research
bodies and
organisms,
right.
government. Yeah. So it's like, okay, we pay for you to go abroad, to learn and to produce abroad, and then you come to work
Bring
in
back
your,
the
yeah.
knowledge. Right.
And usually you are supposed to stay in your country for the same, at least for the same time you stayed abroad working.
Perfect. Sure.
But the problem is that you don't have work when you come back.
Right.
You know.
Right.
So in fact, I came back to defend my thesis. But then I discussed it in the university, and they said, okay, I have work there and I don't have work here. So, and so they let me,
Brazil.
yeah. So they let me go.
Wonderful.
And I come back here.
And you've been
I
in
did,
France to this day. You've been there
yeah,
for decades, right?
17 years. Yeah,
Gotcha.
17 years now. And so I did, I worked in Pasteur Institute a year, and then I worked in the university here in the Paris University here for 3 years, and then I worked in another research institute for more. I don't remember how many years, and I arrived at the point was that, okay, so I could not have temporary contracts anymore because I have like a researcher contractual contract, like
Right.
I don't have a fixed position
Right.
because you need to pass a concourse and to have a fixed position. And the concourse is like, okay, you have 2 places for all the France and
Right.
all France, and so
Very
it's very
competitive.
difficult.
Right.
Yeah, but it's even not that the problem. But for me, it was like, I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know if I want to stay behind my bench,
Right.
because I did for a long time, more than 20 years. And I had this feeling, because for me, since I was a child, it was learn and serve, like learn and contribute, learn and use it for something. And at that point, I had the feeling that because in research as well as in medicine, there is uh, amazing things, but there is also lots of ego and
Right.
vanity, and and for me it was like, and politics, and
Right.
I don't want to lose my time and my energy with that. I want to feel that I'm contributing and I'm doing something. And then I was like, okay, I'm not feeling useful anymore behind my bench. And so at that time, I decided to open my company. And I started, even before that, I started to systematize this methodology based on neuroscience. Because
Mhm.
one funny thing is that in this last lab where I worked, my colleagues used to say, you have something different, because um, you are very productive, but you are also all the time smiling and you help everyone, and and you are not never complaining, and I don't know, and what you do. And I say, yeah, I don't know. And I started to think about that and trying to understand. And what I realized is that simply I was using the knowledge that I had about my brain in myself, and for my own behavior and also interaction with others. And it worked.
So give us like an example so that we could understand where you were coming from. Like, would you
Yeah.
have an impetus to complain and then you would apply a tool that you learned that would stop that behavior? Like, how did that work in
Yeah.
practice?
So maybe I start explaining some things about brain functioning, and maybe it will be clear. Uh, what I In my neuroscientific journey, I discovered that, not me, it's the science discovered
Of
that
course,
our brain functioning almost 100% of the time in autopilot.
autopilot.
Autopilot, yeah. Okay,
Like
so we
to meet the basic survival instincts like food, reproduction,
but
shelter.
even thinking, we produce thousands of thinkings per day. You are not aware of all those
Although
thinkings,
all the
you know
thoughts, right,
thoughts,
right.
thoughts, yeah. you know you are We are seeing each other, our brain, I mean, to see each other, our retina is taking light in 2 dimensions, bringing to the visual cortex that is behind. The image comes upside down.
Upside down.
Okay, the brain put it in the good place and build the third dimension.
Wow.
you know and all this is automatic. You don't know, you don't think, you
Right.
don't realize, and it's very fast. We are listening each other. Our auditive cortex is treating the information and make us listen,
Right.
hear, and it's automatic as well. Our brain takes about 35,000 decisions per day. From these 35,000 decisions per day, do you have an idea of how much you take consciously?
Three, four.
uh, 90 to 100. No, because decision
Okay.
is all the choices you will do during the day.
Right.
If you have
So
a coffee
out
or
of
tea, how
35,000, around 9,000 are conscious
no,
decisions that I make.
not 9,000, 90,
Oh,
90.
90, 90.
Yeah,
Wow.
200.
Okay.
So it's 0.26%, if I'm not wrong, but it's
That's
less
mathematics.
than 1%. It's
Right.
very little. And more than that, the way, I mean, our brain is I mean, the I don't know how the word to use, but like the engine that is able to perceive the external world and all the stimuli, and to treat these informations and to elaborate responses, allowing us to act on the world. But these perceptions are subjective and automatic. Our brain perceives about 400,000 units of information per second.
And all of
400.
those are go through the filter of subjectivity.
Yeah, because in fact, I mean, are you maybe take out all the romance of the thing, but uh, everything is about electrical impulse. Your brain take it from your body take it from the sensors and the sense. This information arrive to your brain, decodates it, and send also electrical impulses that make you respond to it.
Right.
So it is always subjective and automatic. Our first perception of the world is always like that, because
Mhm.
this perception depends on your inner state in your past experiences, not in the other lives, but
Right,
on
right.
this life, and all the context around you. And so, of course, if you and me, we live exactly the same situation, we will not live it the same way.
Because you're two
We
different
can
people.
we can't say, okay, even if you are seeing it, we can say, see, I don't know, a star that is, okay, but we can we can agree with facts. Okay, I say, okay, it happened like that. But if I ask you to describe the facts or me to
Would be
describe
very
the facts,
different.
we will not describe it the same way.
Right, right.
And if I ask you to describe your feelings about the fact, it will be even more different than mine. So in neuroscience, we used to say that nobody is able to see reality as it is. All we will have is an inner representation of reality.
An inner representation of reality. So, how does neuroscience, the fields that you study, explain identical twins that grow up in the same household, same environment, being with completely different personalities and temperaments? Because
Because,
supposedly, genetically, they're very similar, right?
yeah,
Supposedly.
but this is a good point, because the genetics is 1/3 of the things that impact our development, our lives, and how we will get old and so on.
Right, right.
And then we have 2/3 that we can add on it. The first, the first of this 2/3 is epigenetics.
Epigenetics.
Epigenetics, epigenetics is like the impact of the environment, and the environment is like uh, nutrition, so food, physical activity, sleep, stress, pollutants, chemical stuff, and all that, electromagnetism, and so on, in the expression of our genes.
So, how all of
So
those things influence the expression of our genes, how our
exactly,
genes will be activated to come alive.
exactly, activated or inactivated, or expressing not in the good time or not in the good amounts, and so on.
Got it.
So, for example, I can have, just
An
an
example.
example that is not true, but if I can have, for example, a mutation that makes me more susceptible to become obese, for example. But I can never become obese if I have a good lifestyle, I eat
Good
well, I do
nutrition. Yeah.
exercise, good nutrition, and so on. Okay, but if the only difference is that if you don't have the same mutation, you need to do less effort than me
To
to
lose
not
weight.
be obese, or to not to lose or to not gain weight, and
Got
me,
it.
I need to do more effort because I have this genetic thing that is influence. We have, finally, there are very few conditions that are what we call genetic disease or genetic conditions. That means that is determining. I mean, if you have
Right.
this mutation, you have this disease,
Regardless of the
regardless everything.
environment, it's going
Exactly.
to appear.
Yeah.
Very few.
But we call that rare disease.
So basically, the vast majority are what we call genetic predispositions
Are
based
not
on,
determination. Yeah.
right.
It's not a
Okay.
determination, it's a susceptibility. So yeah, you are more susceptible to develop something, but it doesn't mean you will develop it.
Got it.
But if I have this susceptibility gene, and then I eat lots of sugar and eat lots of
Right.
McDonald's and so on, and and don't exercise, and I will become very easily obese.
Right. Got it.
So most part of conditions, even if it's not health conditions, conditions in general, physical, mental ones, are multifactorial. And multifactorial means lots of impact of epigenetics, but also neuroplasticity. Okay, so our brain has eight. I have the numbers, and in between French, English, and Portuguese that we don't say the same way. Billions. Billions. Okay. Yeah, because in French it's milliard, so there
That's
is
right.
nothing to
Yes.
do.
Numbers in French are very weird, but that's
Yeah.
another conversation.
So our brain has 86 billion neurons. 86 billion neurons. It's lots of neurons, okay? But then what is really important is that each one of these 86 billion neurons is able to do up to 10,000 connections at the same time.
Wow.
So you do 86 billion to the
times 10.
It's
No,
not times, it's
exponentially to the 10th degree. Wow,
Yeah.
to the 10th power. Yeah, that's a big number.
Yeah, it's astronomic. Okay.
But of
So
course, we don't use those connections all at the same time, right?
Yeah, our brain has the potential to do this. But what it means concretely, it means that we have almost infinite possibility to learn, to change, to adapt. Because
that's the neuroplasticity part, right?
Yeah, because neuroplasticity is about the capacity of our brain to rewire our brain all the time. I mean, reinforce connections, undo connections, do new connections, that allow us to have a new knowledge, new abilities, creativity, and adapt, change, and so on. But the point is that, so all this, I used to say this is just to understand the ordre de grandeur,
the grandeur,
a ordem de grandeza. Just it's not
the magnitude.
Yeah, the magnitude. So we have among 96 and 98% of all our brain activity is in autopilot. And we have 2 to 4% that is
conscious.
Conscious in the sense of voluntary,
like driven by my will. I will something into action.
Yeah. In neuroscience, you call it goal-directed action. So this is an evolutive advantage because all this automatic function allows us to take decision, make decision fast, act fast, without spending too much energy.
Right.
Because our brain, the first mission, if you can say like that, is to guarantee our survival and to
And
survive the first.
so and it's to preserve and conserve as much energy as possible. That's why our
Exactly, because
tendency is to always want to be lazy and do minimal effort, right?
exactly, because in fact is that the 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 goal is the survival, but to survive, the first thing you need is energy. So
Right.
everything is about energy optimization,
Conservation. Right.
conservation, and optimization.
Gotcha.
So all this automatic functioning is what allows our brain to be so complex, to treat such a huge amount of information, and to treat it and to generate also complex responses, and so allows us to better adapt as well to our environment, and so better survive.
Got it.
So the problem of this autopilot, that it's inflexible. It means it's not changing with the context. So eventually it becomes inadapted to the situation, And all the conscious part, so when we are using our
The 2 to
neuroplasticity,
4%.
yeah, uh, needs much more energy and time. And it means that you need to do new connections. And because of that, it's spending more time and more energy. The
Right.
automatic are connections that are already made and repeated, so already strong.
Right.
And the conscious part is like you need to start a new connection, and so you need to put the
Like put in the effort and the
exactly.
discipline and the strength to create those
Yeah,
new connections, right?
yeah. Because biologically, you needed to put all everything in place for those connections to be done.
Right.
So it usually it actually use physical energy to do that,
Right.
and takes more time, even though it's always fast. But when you are in autopilot, for example, your reaction times is around 100 milliseconds. When you are in conscious mode, it's around 5 times more. 100 milliseconds is still fast, but it's 5 times
Slower.
less fast. Huh?
Got it. Yeah, because you're actually thinking about the
Yeah,
will to decide on yes or no or whatever, right?
yeah.
So how does that become the backdrop for the methodology you develop when you decide, okay, I'm done with the academic bench research part of my life. I want to go out into the
Mm,
practical world and start applying this in sort of, so
mm.
to speak.
Lots of things. First of all, this understanding that we function almost all the time in autopilot gives some kind of humbleness. No, I don't know how to say that.
Okay.
No, because I'm transforming a French word in English, so it's not working.
How do you say it?
Humildade.
Oh,
Humildade.
humility.
Humility. I was speaking French with an English accent, so of course it's not working. And I say, no, it's strange. It's bizarre. Humility. Yeah, because human being has a lot of arrogance, about we are very powerful, we are very intelligent, we are very smart, we are very everything. So accepting that biologically, it's not really like that. Okay.
Right.
And also to look for to understand how what are the conditions I need to be able, first of all, to lead myself. I mean, to take the conscious lead and over this autopilot. So the first thing is to have a clear purpose, give meaning, because your brain will not allow you to expand your energy for nothing.
So by
So
giving it a purpose, it allows your mind to focus, the energy, so you can actually channel the effort to that
Yeah.
purpose.
And more than that is that, I mean, really, the brain says, I mean, I'm humanizing the brain, but it's like brain says, okay, you want to change something, you want to learn something, so you want to spend energy.
Right.
But if it's not clear for me why you want to do that, what is the utility? Okay, it's useful or not. It brings you where. If these three questions are not very clear and satisfactory, the brain said, no, 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 no. You will not spend your energy for nothing. You not to throw it away. You keep it because you can need it before.
Do you think that's part of the reason people sometimes self-sabotage in the middle of a project? The brain is the brain's way of going,
Of
listen,
course,
too much effort, not worth it. The juice is not worth the squeeze. Conserve energy is better. Could that be a reason?
yeah, yeah. Usually is also multifactorial, but this
Sure,
is one
sure.
of the reasons. So this is one thing. So give meaning, having a
Meaning.
clear purpose. This is very important. And when I say give meaning, is these three questions that are why you want to do that, is it useful, really useful, and where it bring me, or lead me.
Where is it going to take me?
Yeah, exactly.
Got it.
And then the second thing is that, sorry, there was a kind something that changed in my computer. And then the second thing is that if you want to take the conscious lead over your behavior, or your thoughts, your world vision, or whatever, it means that you need to spend energy. And you cannot spend the energy you don't have.
Mm.
So there, and I make also the bridge with all the medicine and biological knowledge, that is, okay, the first thing, I mean, there is four pillars that are very important for what I called sustainable well-being and performance, that are the energy management,
Energy management.
time management, information management, and attention management.
Wow, that's really
Okay,
cool. Energy management, time management, information management, and attention management.
exactly. So when it comes to energy management, that is the first pillar, and without it, you cannot do the other
The other
things.
three, right?
You have all the more how we can say that, more physiological thing, so nutrition, micronutrition, because sometimes we talk a lot about nutrition, but not enough about micronutrition, the vitamins, the oligo
Right.
elements, the minerals, the vitamins, and so on. And most part of population are under
Is
it's under
is
the
lacking in
what we
those
need. Yeah,
nutrients and
yeah,
supplements. Yeah.
yeah. So really have a, how to say, to have a conscious nutrition,
Like a
like not
wholesome,
only,
wholesome
not,
nutrition
yeah,
in every way.
yeah,
Got it. So that's
with
for
all,
the energy management.
yeah, but not only the nutrition, because you have the nutrition, you have the hydration, you
Right.
have sleeping, you have I
Exercise.
mean breathing,
Right.
exercising, and so on, but you have also emotional intelligence.
Hmm.
So how you manage your stress, how you understand and manage your emotions, how you use your emotions as a motor of action, because our
That's
emotions
that's
are,
part of energy management,
yeah,
emotional intelligence.
yeah, because
Sorry, I didn't.
emotion is at the origin of our behavior.
I
If you are
also heard in English that emotion means energy in motion. I really
motion,
like that.
yes, yeah, it's a good association, because somehow is it, It is exactly
Yeah,
it.
like if you get really upset at something or someone, the rest of your day you're drained, you're exhausted, you're tired. Like you
Yeah,
wear yourself out literally of energy.
yeah, yeah. Because in fact, emotions evolved like I used to say, radars. Radar,
Radars, yeah,
radar, radars, and motors. It means radars because they allows us to better understand or better identify what is happening inside us, in other people, and around us at the environment. And motors because they allow us to move, to act, in
right,
order to um, respond to the needs of this environment, internal or external environment, and
right,
so to better survive, better adapt. So
right.
emotions are 100% in automatic pilot, so we don't have lots of control on it. But what happens is that our automatic brain interpretate all situation as threat, reward, or neutral. This is also subjective and automatic. And then this interpretation will generate momentaneous chemical change in our brain that will provoke some physiological reaction. For example, I cry, I will shake, I will run, I don't know, okay? This is an emotion. Neurobiologically, we say that an emotion is always physical, has always a physical reality,
A physical component, right?
Yeah. And then in the fraction of seconds, our cognitive brain gave a meaning to these physical sensations. So it used lots of things. So your personality, your humor, the
Oh.
context, the memory. It's
It
okay?
says you use lots of, and then you froze.
Sorry. It's okay now?
And now it's good.
Okay.
You're back.
Yeah. So our cognitive brain will use lots of information about your personality, your motivations, your sensorial perceptions, your memory, the lecture of the environment, the context you are inserted in, the physical reactions you are having, and then it will give you a meaning, a psychological sense to this physical sensation that is the feeling.
Right.
So if I ask you, you cry because you are sad, or you are sad because you cry?
That's a great question. I cry because I'm sad.
Yes and no. So in this process, I'm explaining. So the neurobiological process, the crying come before your consciousness that you are sad.
Right. So
You know,
the emotion of crying, the physical part of it manifests first, and the second part is the meaning that my
you give
cognitive
to
brain
that.
gave to that sensation.
Yeah.
And then
Because you
okay.
can, yeah, because you can also cry of happiness, you can
Out of
cry of
joy,
pain, or you can
ours is
cry of
joy, laughter. You could laugh and cry, but a lot of laughter. So
angry. You can cry
right.
because you are angry, so it's your brain that very small seconds, fractions of seconds after, read everything inside of you and around of you and say, okay, you are sad, you are angry,
So
you
these
have,
meanings that we give, that's where we need to sort of work on and be aware of to maybe change.
yeah. But then, so the point is that in the real life, you don't really make the difference between these two moments because it's
Right.
very fast. So you have the impression that is at the same time, like I'm
Right.
sad and I cry, and even
Right.
we have the impression that is in the other sense,
It's the opposite order.
the
Yeah.
opposite. Yeah. And then this psychological sense that you give, meaning that you give to the emotion, the physical reaction, will generate a behavior, an action. This action can be of three types. It can be a physiological change in your body. it can be what we call expressive behavior, something you say, something you do, like externally, or it can be something only inside your head, like I become aware of something, I do some connection, and I understand or see things differently.
Got it.
So the where we can act consciously more easily, it's not easy, but it's less difficult
Sure.
than the other ways, is in our behavior.
Right.
It means that, for example, angry, all the emotions are very important. So the emotion angry is very important because it's the emotion that allows us to say stop to something that is not convenient,
Boundary.
that it's not good, And the need that is associated to angry is the understanding, changing, or reparation. Reparation. Yeah, we can say like that. No, I don't know.
Make like a
Reparação.
fixing,
Fixing.
correcting.
Yeah, fixing the situation or changing, or and feel understood.
Right.
So act with angry is not good, but feeling angry is good. So the
Right.
point is that the point of emotional intelligence through my methodology that is based on the way our brain works is like, okay, learn to identify our emotions. So I developed some tools, tables, board tables, to understand the emotions, etc. That comes from the physical feelings because it's easier to identify what you are feeling physically. And then trying to identify what emotions are associated to that. What are the trigger factors, the intensity of the emotion, because it helps us to understand I'm overreacting, underreacting, or it's okay,
Right.
Um, Also asking yourself why I'm feeling like that. Because once more, you and me, you can live exactly the same situation, you not feel it the same way,
Right.
because our emotions are coming from our past experiences, our state of the moment. You are not feeling the same way if you didn't sleep well at night, or if
Right.
you have a very
Exactly.
good night of sleep, if you had conflict with someone you love or not, So it's lots of things that is very interesting on that. That is okay. You learn that this is biological, that emotion is momentaneous. This chemical change is transitory, it's not lasting. So
Right.
take the time, don't act, because when we act fast, you act in autopilot. If you want
Right.
to take the lead, you need to take a breath, you need to take the time and let the time for the circuitry to pass through the prefrontal cortex, that is the seat of our conscious thought,
Right.
So this is one thing. The other thing is that, okay, I understand my emotions, I recognize them, I
Acknowledge
also
them. Right.
I acknowledge them, and also I understand the influence of my emotions in my behavior. So it's like, okay, what is the automatic behavior that this emotion caused on me at that time in this situation?
Right.
And this behavior is benefic, productive, I'm okay with that or not. And if not, what kind of behavior I would like to have instead.
Right.
And after that, we can do lots of techniques of visualization and mental imagery to be able to rebuild this behavior in case of another similar situation, and so on. But the basis of emotional intelligence is I understand my emotions, I understand what it's doing my behavior, but also I understand the needs that these emotions are signaling to me, and
Yeah,
I'm
it's
able
like
to
you're
act
you're you're
through them.
giving them meaning to the emotions, because like you said, when I need to encourage my brain to dedicate energy to something I want to do, I have to ask why I'm doing it, if it's useful, how useful it is, and it's where it's going to take me, right? These three things. So is it a kind of a same way that when the emotion comes up, I need to, part of the emotional intelligence process is to understand the meaning of it, why it came up, how it comes up, when it
Exactly.
comes up. Right.
Yeah. And the needs that are, because the point is that emotions are there to show you that there are some needs you need to fulfill,
To address, right?
to address. And so the idea is really to, I will make a comparison that is not an emotion, it's more a sensation. But if you are hungry, you look for food. If you don't feel hungry, you don't look for food, you don't move.
Right.
Right. Because it means you spend energy to go for food, but you don't need it. Okay.
Right.
So emotions are there to say, okay, you need to change something, you need to protect yourself, you need to be reconforted, you know. And then if you don't act to reach these needs, but the emotions will stay there, you know.
Right.
Sometimes give physical consequences and mental consequences sometimes, you know, if it's during
If
it's
it
less.
lasts too long.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that brain is always looking for a threat or for pleasure, right? Or reward. The reward mechanism in the brain or threat.
From threat, I mean, brain is like every situation, brain is classifying like threat with different levels, okay?
Right.
Threat, reward, or neutral. And it makes, I mean, generating automatic behavior to fly threat and search for pleasure.
For pleasure.
So this is
that. Sorry, go ahead.
Go. No,
No,
go.
the reason I bring this up is because I wrote down the four things here. You mentioned energy management, time management, information management, and attention management. The bottom two, information and attention management, it shows how addicted we are to our phones and the social media dopamine hits that we get when we scroll. And there is even a term in English called doom scrolling, which is just scrolling like I'm hypnotized, like I'm in a casino and I just go to the slot machine one more time, like that hypnotic effect. It's the brain's search for reward, for pleasure, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because the point, and this is interesting, the point is that understanding all that allows us as well to understand that if you don't have this balance in your everyday life of reward and threat well balanced, you know, if you have more threat I mean, lasting long, it means you are in chronic stress, or you are not, you are in danger. Your brain just say, okay, you are in danger, you know. So this is generating, first of all, emotions that are more how to say that, emotions that are signaling. Because if you think about the primary emotions, you know, you have sadness, angry, fear, disgust, and joy. Okay. We can see Inside Out is a very good movie about emotions and the brain.
Yes.
They really did a good research work before, and it's very nice.
Yeah.
So usually people say, oh, it's too pessimist because you have one good emotion and five and four bad emotions. There is no such a thing. All emotions are good because they are there for some reason and to show you that you need to do something about that, you know.
Right.
The thing is that emotions that that generates pleasant feelings or sensations, or not pleasant feelings and sensations, okay. But all our more complex feelings comes from the register of those five primary emotions, you know. So the point is that what I used to say is that we are social animals. So we need the group, we need people to survive.
We need
to
physical
feel
interaction.
Yeah. So I used to say that the thing we need the most in life after our body and energy and so on is love.
Yeah, we
But
need each other.
But love in a more macro, you know, meaning,
universal way, right?
Macro love in the sense of feeling of belonging, connection, protection, you know, safety, and so on, and trust, and all those things.
Right.
But the point of social interaction is that as our brain is there to guarantee our survival, he loves to anticipate. because if he can anticipate, he can be more sure or safe that he can choose the good answer, the good response
Right.
for a situation. So anticipation is a reward for our brain. Not anticipation.
Oh,
No, yeah, absence of anticipation. I mean, uh, uncertainty, unknown situations, novelty, depending on the degree, is a threat.
it's a threat. So, like when you say anticipation is a type of reward or pleasure for the brain, do you mean in the way like I'm going on a trip this weekend, so I am excited in anticipation that
Yeah,
I'm expecting that it's going to be a great time. So this is what you're talking about?
this is one kind of anticipation that is even more powerful because you are anticipating the pleasure, so you are anticipating reward. So the reward comes even before because you
Right.
you are
I'm
you are
already there
starting
enjoying the trip.
you are already releasing dopamine in your reward circuitry because you are anticipating the reward,
Right.
it's like the dog experience that when he listened to
The bell
the bell, he started
salivates.
already to, yeah, exactly, okay. But the point is that because reward is not always about um, have this pleasure sensation, but it's also
Mhm.
about the safety sensation.
Mm,
Okay,
got it.
so there is this kind of anticipation. So, okay, you are focused on the reward. So you are already living this reward. This is one thing. Another thing is that when you are facing an unknown situation or an uncertain situation, you don't feel safe. So it's by default a threat
Right.
because it's potentially dangerous.
Right.
So the point is that interacting with someone else is always manage uncertainty.
Right.
So it always generating somehow some level of stress, of fear, because you cannot predict other behavior, or you can just be wrong in your predictions. It happens with everybody. You need to have a difficult conversation with someone. You prepare
Right.
yourself, you prepare the discussion. I will say that, he will say that, and I will say that, and then you arrive, you say what you planned to say, but the person did don't answer what you were expecting him or her to answer, and then you are, I mean,
Yeah,
surprised
that's
and
why
don't know
that's
how to.
why that's why most people avoid confrontations or avoid unpleasant conversations and even avoid the word no. Some people
Yeah,
say they can't say no. Can you go with me there? Internally, my brain wants to say no, but somehow I just go, yeah, I'll go with you.
yeah,
Right? Why do we do
yeah,
that?
yeah, 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 totally. But then the point is that to understand that, so our brain, we don't have the same repertory, we don't have the same connectome. Even identical twins don't have the same connectome. I mean, all the brain connections, because you
The
don't live.
circuitry, the
Yeah,
neural networks are different. Right,
yeah,
right,
because we don't live situations the same way. We don't live
right,
exactly the same situations.
right,
Okay. First of all, then our brains, your brain and my brain, is perceiving the world in a subjective and automatic way and guiding our behavior almost 100% of the time in autopilot. We have, each one of us, our own inner representation of reality. And the top of that, the brain always think it's right.
right.
So if you have an inner representation of the reality that's the opposite of mine, but you think you are right and I think I'm right, it blocks, you know?
Right.
And
Interaction
then,
gets
yeah, and then it makes that this human interactions much complex and difficult sometimes, because we are all the time like that. So when you understand all that, you have this first impressions and perceptions. You
right.
cannot change it, but you are able to questioning your first perception, automatic perception. You become able to say, okay, maybe let's see from the perspective of the other person,
Right.
even though I don't agree,
Right.
but I can understand.
Abraham Lincoln has a very famous quote, which I love. He says, I don't like this man. I need to get to know him better.
Yeah, yeah,
That's really cool. That's very emotionally
yeah,
intelligent. Like, I have
yeah.
a first impression that's negative. Hold on. Let me question that. Let me give it new meaning by actually facing it and going instead of avoiding it, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a huge universe. So we are still in the first pillar. It's the
Oh, wow. The
energy
first pillar,
level.
yeah, energy
Yeah,
management.
yeah.
Then time,
So,
information, and
yeah.
attention.
So there are lots of things and tools that I developed about this, how to manage our emotional intelligence, and it's there is a first part of of emotional intelligence is with yourself, how you talk about with yourself and how you feel about yourself and situations, and also in the relationship with others. Okay, so this is one thing, and we can put also there the stress management as well. That it's
Right.
about this conscious balance between threat and reward.
Threat and
You know,
pleasure and reward. Yep.
yeah, and all these four pillars are interconnected because, for example, you were saying, yeah, we are. There is a book that I love that is Dopamine Nation. It's a
Yep.
psychiatrist from United States, and I just forgot his name, family name. Uh, but Dopamine Nation is the name of the book, and she talks about that we are in a moment where we are all addicted to dopamine and looking for internet, YouTube, Netflix, social media in general, like
Right. Right.
Instagram, Facebooks, and so on. And then we have things that already exist, like drugs, alcohol, and so on, and gambling, and I mean all those things. But today everything is very easy access.
Right.
So you have this thing, and the point is that all those things that I used to call the trap reward, because the problem is that when you are not aware and you are living your everyday life with this balance that is with more threat and
Threat and
punition
reward.
than reward, your brain say, okay, it's not good, you need to do something. And so it will look for things that give you lots of
Pleasure.
dopamine very fast. But the problem that with that you unbalance the mechanism in your brain about these two things. And then, for example, what happens, and it's very easy to see with the drugs, a drug addiction, for example, is that the look for pleasure leads us to anhedonia, that is the absence of capacity to feel pleasure.
Uh-huh. The
You become apathic because in fact you need those more and more and more because you disequilibrated it artificially.
right.
And so to feel the sensation of pleasure you need too much,
It's
so
like
you
what
are
they
not.
say to people that are addicted to porn, for example,
Yeah,
pornography. That when they have sexual intercourse with physical people, that they're not able to get aroused or even
yeah,
conclude the intercourse because they have been so overstimulated by the pornographic images that they'll
exactly,
never correspond to that physical reality because
exactly.
you've conditioned your brain to be so saturated, right, by
Yeah,
that kind of stimulus.
yeah.
Right.
And more than conditioning is chemical.
Chemical,
It's
right.
like yeah, it's
You
chemical. You really
flood the brain
disequilibrate.
with the chemical, right?
Exactly. So lots of drugs, even legal drugs, medical medicines and so on, and
Right.
and the illegal
Like
drugs, and
coffee, caffeine, right?
yeah. Coffee is a little bit different because coffee don't really act in reward system.
Oh, okay.
Uh, coffee acts more in catecholamines, so dopamine as well, but it's a kind of different pathway, and it's
Got
not
it.
really.
We
If you
won't
are
go there.
taking too much, if you are taking too much
Sure.
coffee, yeah, you can disequilibrate as well. So anyway, you have all those part of being aware of yourself, how your body works, how your brain works, and which are the needs or the optimal conditions for your body and brain to function in its best way,
Got it.
or have its best performance, in the lasting, sustainably, like
Right, right.
in the long time, the long run. So this is the first thing.
And then how do you take these 4 pillars and how do you apply it today in your work?
So I give training, so for people to be aware of all those things. I developed very practical tools as well. I also use tools from another methodology that I practiced for years. I didn't develop it. It's a professor that calls the Rose, that's Brazilian. That is
Oh
the
yeah,
Rose method. The
I
Rose
did a
method.
yoga class last week on the Rose method for the first time. What a
Oh,
coincidence.
yeah.
I really
Okay, yeah.
liked it.
Yeah, so the Rose method for me, it's very powerful because it's giving very practical tools to work on your body, on your mind, on your
Yeah.
emotional intelligence. So breathing, meditation, body
Yes.
techniques, techniques to activate metabolism, and so on. So also working a lot on self-knowledge and
Yeah.
so on. So I practiced for more than 20 years now,
Nice.
and I learned it. I teach it. I teach it for a long time as well. So
Cool.
I still practice all the time. So there are also practices that allows you this self-observation, because you
You
stop.
quiet down the mind a little bit. Yeah, I noticed that.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then I support transformation in companies, because then I think you would not have time, but I also developed a tool for diagnosis, and also steering the thing, uh, using all the things our brain needs. Okay, if you say, okay, I for example, I doing a transformation in my company, so I'm asking everybody collectively to pass into conscious mode and to make
Right.
efforts, change
Right.
the way of doing and thinking and so on. So I needed to give the good conditions for them to do that, and it's not enough to want to act. You need to also have the capacity to act.
Right.
And so there are 6 pillars, different ones, that we need to address to really be able to increase power of action individually and collectively, and then lead
Gotcha.
to effective transformations that last in time. So then I use this tool to make diagnoses, and then to recommend things, and to follow up them, to put in place all those things, and to be able to do those kinds of transformations.
Very
But then,
cool.
and finally, and I stop talking because
Oh,
I
this
speak
is
a lot.
great. We could stay here for a long time.
I'm passionate, so.
Beautiful.
But the point is that, so this methodology that I systematize, this Coura Neurocompatible method. I put Coura Neurocompatible because in Brazil there is a methodology that is criação neurocompatível. That is really
Neurocompatible
about,
creation.
yeah, but it's about really children neurodevelopment and how to
Oh, okay.
educate children in a neurocompatible way. But I love this name because it's really very, for me, it's really this idea of
Makes
it's
sense.
compatible with the way of our
The
work
way our brain works.
functioning. Yeah. And then I put Cora because it's the
Of
name of my
course.
family, and etc. So it's Cora Neurocompatible method, and we are creating a kind of label organizations, neurocompatible organizations, and neurocompatible leadership, and
Nice.
so on. So where we are using different kinds of tools, but the idea is how we can really transform our organizations to be more neurocompatible in the relation with people inside that works in the company. So how we
Right.
interact.
The different teams, the different hierarchies, and yeah.
Exactly. So company culture, managerial culture, and I mean collaboration, and
Right.
everything we need to put in place to make it to be sustainably performed and associated to well-being, and not to the detriment of it.
Right.
The relationship with clients and other stakeholders to also
Right.
be able to make a win-win relationship, and then all things related more to the process or the system, how to optimize our work organization, our time and priority management, our information management, attention management, so all those things.
Beautiful. And so, if people want to get to know that work, Renata, even have a consultation or a session, how are they able to do that?
Contact me on LinkedIn or by mail. I have
We'll have
my
all of that in the description of the video also below.
website as well, Empowerment Center, point
Hmm.
FR, from
Hmm.
France. I live in Paris. Yeah, and you also. I'm always glad to collaborate or
No,
to
it
just.
sounds amazing because I could really, I think all of us can benefit from having this more purpose driven way of being, where it's not like we are just reacting to our emotions, but we actually take the time to think consciously of what about a decision to make and then act on it. And I took a lot of notes here of what you wrote, and I really love it. Now, is there any way that you think this all that we spoke about in the work that you do, how have you observed in your um, clients that you're in companies transforming? Have you observed any spiritual dimension to it, or I don't know if it's the word spiritual, but a similar word in a way that people can sort of transcend what they're going through in their day-to-day experience into something more metaphysical, perhaps?
Um, I want to say yes and no, because no, in the sense of France is not really. We cannot say that is a spiritualistic people. They are very says the
The
reason
culture, yeah.
the overvalorization of the overvalue of the reason and so on.
Right.
Even though we know that reason and emotion goes on hand
Hand in
and
hand, yeah.
hand in hand together. But then I found in this more pragmatic and more biological approach a way to uh, increase awareness of people, consciousness, and also increase their capacity or ability to take the lead and to work on
And
over it,
themselves, right?
on themselves, um, because there is no spiritual or or mystic or metaphysical stuff, but people that has already something like that, they always ask me, can we talk later, because I felt something, and and then for those people, yeah, we can talk more about that. But for me, the in all this pathway, for me, I replace this somehow, this more spiritual approach or language or vision for consciousness
Right.
and responsibility, and take the lead of things, and this intimate reform, how you work on yourself to be a better person, and being a better person will allow you to make the world better as well.
Absolutely.
And for me, it's the also the pathway that allows me to impact more people in a very powerful way, because we will be able to act in the deep causes, and not only in the the
Super
apparent
superficial, right?
superficial.
No,
Yeah,
and you've got the backing of science with the data, with the proofs, and with the facts that support your methods and your methodology and the way you operate. So
yeah.
that alone
And also,
is very
because finally we cannot really, I think, find a kind of healthy spirituality if you don't have self-knowledge, if you are not
right.
able to be aware of yourself, if you are not able to look to yourself, to look
Absolutely.
around you, to develop this kind of re- real kindness in your look of
With
others,
yourself. Yeah, exactly.
yourself and others, so for me, anyway, this is much more powerful, because otherwise you come to the field of belief, and then you
Yeah,
lose
belief,
lots of people this way.
mob mentality, brainwashing, fanaticism,
Yeah,
because you're so
yeah,
externally
yeah,
oriented and so externally focused that whatever
yeah,
people tell you, you're just going to go with it because you like them or you like the place or the right. Wow, this is
exactly.
wonderful. This is really, really deep. I took a lot of notes. I'm going to leave all of your information in the description of the video, guys. So check Renata out, check her work, follow her on social media. And this was very deep. And I feel like we could even do a second episode on going further into the different tools. But since we're already at an hour and a half, I want to thank you so much for being here on Spirit Reflections and sharing your journey and everything that you've already mastered and that you're helping people to master in themselves. So thank you so much.
Thank you a lot. Thank you a lot. It was
And
a
don't leave,
pleasure.
don't leave yet. We're just gonna say bye to our followers here. Follow us, subscribe, like, and help us to get the message out so that this fire on Spirit Reflections can grow more and more in good feelings and love. Till next time, everybody, take care.